Welcome to a lecture on Mary Blackwood. So, for too long, history has been a conversation among men, right? We have listened to their theories, their disputes, their boasts, but history is not only made in the pronouncements of kings and the published quartos of men like William Lilly. It is made in the quiet, persistent hum of daily life, and it is there we find Mary Blackwood. The college's acquisition of her papers, 3 ledgers, and a bundle of correspondence is, I do not hesitate to say, the most significant archival discovery, in my opinion, in astrological history. They are not a formal treatise, they are the working notes of a practicing astrologer from the period of 1652 to 1667. They offer us not a theory of astrology, but a living portrait of it. So who was she? We have no portrait. We know she was the unmarried daughter of a London apothecary, a man of some learning. From her father she inherited not a estate, but something far more valuable, literacy, a basic knowledge of medicinal herbs, and crucially a set of astronomical tables. In the margins of his dispensary books, she taught herself to calculate a chart. So let us situate her in her cosmos. Based on the few natal charts she cast for herself, primarily for practice, we can speculate she had Saturn in the 3rd house in Cancer. This speaks volumes. A mind, the 3rd house, disciplined, cautious, and burdened by a sense of responsibility. Saturn, particularly regarding family and emotional security. Cancer. It is the signature of one who does not speak frivolously, whose words are measured, and for whom the past is a heavy weight. Her Mercury, we believe, was in Capricorn, trine that Saturn. This is the mind of an archivist, a meticulous recorder, one who builds arguments with the careful precision of a stonemason. There is nothing of the flamboyant magus here. Her practice was what we would now call a mundane, horary practice, but that term belies this profound human drama. Her clients were not the powerful. They were her neighbors, the widows, the shopkeepers, the seamstresses, the sailors' wives. Their questions were the urgent, desperate questions of a precarious existence. Is my husband alive? His ship 3 months overdue? Who has stolen my silver thimble? Should I invest my small savings in this merchant's venture? Let us examine a specific case from her ledger, entry 43, dated October 14th, 1658. The querent is a woman named Goody Parsons. Her question, whether my son pressed into the navy liveth or is dead. Blackwood cast the chart. She notes the ascendant is 12 degrees Taurus. Venus, its ruler, is in Pisces in the 11th house. The moon, the general significator of the people and the emotional body of the question, is in the 8th house of death. But applying to a trine with Jupiter in the 4th, the sun is signified by the 5th house, ruled by the sun, which is in Libra, and the 10th house, cadent, but in a sign of its fall. A William Lilly purse might see dire portents, the 8th house moon, the sun, and its fall, but Blackwood's judgment is nuanced and profoundly humane. She writes, the ascendant strong, and its lady Venus and her own face in Pisces shews the mother's hope is not in vain. The moon, though, in the 8th applies to trine Jupiter, the greater fortune, in the 4th, which is the end of the matter. This promises a safe, if delayed, return to home. The sun, significator of the sun, is weak by place, shewing his suffering and captivity, but he is not besieged by malefics. He is witnessed by the trine of the moon to Jupiter, judgment, the sun liveth. He is in hardship, perhaps a prisoner, but he shall return home before the next full moon. A marginal note added weeks later reads simply, returned, égoutté from a Dutch prison. Do you see the artistry? This is not a mere mechanical application of rules. It is an interpretation that weighs despair, 8th house moon, against hope, the applying trine to Jupiter. It understands that a planet in its fall can mean suffering, but not necessarily death. She reads the chart not as a fatalistic sentence, but as a narrative of struggle with a hopeful conclusion. This is the astrology of one who understands vulnerability intimately. Her techniques were, in many ways, orthodox William Lilly. She used the same system of houses, rulerships, and essential dignities, but her emphasis was different. She had a particular genius for the condition of the moon. In a world where women's lives and fortunes were so often governed by the cycles of biology and the unpredictability of male-dominated events, the moon's swift passage through the chart became a primary timer and trigger. She watched its applications and separations with an acuity I have seldom seen matched. Furthermore, she developed what I can only call a doctrine of testimony, where a single testimony might suggest an answer. She would not render judgment until she found at least 3 points of celestial evidence converging. This was her Saturnine caution, her method of building an unassailable case in a world that would have been all too ready to dismiss a woman's error. Why is her recovery so vital? It is not merely to add a woman's name to our roll call. It is to correct a profound distortion in our historical understanding. We have inherited an astrology of power, of kings, and Revolutions from William Lilly and Gadbury. Mary Blackwood gives us the astrology of the powerless. She reveals how the celestial art functioned as a tool for navigating a world of profound legal, economic, and social insecurity. Her charts are a kind of psychological and social archaeology, mapping the quiet terrors and fragile hopes of those whom history has forgotten. She is the counterpoint to William Lilly's public bombast. He wrote for print, she wrote for survival. He sought fame, she sought certainty in an uncertain world. To study Mary Blackwood is to understand that the true power of astrology may not lie in its ability to predict the fate of nations, but in its capacity to grant a moment of clarity, a thread of hope to a frightened woman in a darkened room, waiting for a son who may never return. She represents a road not taken in our tradition, a quieter, more introspective, and deeply ethical practice that was silenced not by a lack of skill, but by a surplus of prejudice. In her meticulous Saturnine script, we find not just a lost astrologer, but a lost potential for what our art could have been.